And if you ask people, do they like something without asking for objective reasons? Like, do you like that show?
Mm.
I would say certainly the first level is going to be all about emotion. You know, how do you feel when you watch it?
Yeah.
And it could be really horrible things or scary things or stuff that is not normally something you would seek enjoyment in. And yet, for whatever reason, it speaks to you.
That is why we remember how people make us feel more than what they say. We remember whether they make us feel good, bad, indifferent, aroused, whatever. We remember that. We don't remember the exact words of what they say. And I tell you, it's through natural selection.
Oh,
I was going to say,
sorry, man. Yeah,
that's okay.
Feeling, and if you ask people, do they like something without asking for objective reasons? Like, do you like that show?
Mm. Am I moving?
Yes, you're perfect. Yeah.
Okay, good. No, I was going to say that, I was just saying that, yeah, through natural selection, we've just developed that sense really, really, really well. And it's the same thing with fight direction, because we can tell when people aren't angry, you know, like the work you have to do is so hard. I cannot tell you how impressed I am. A really good fight director who's able to create a story where people worry about the safety of the character. At the same time, the actors are completely safe and aren't going to kill themselves with a sword or something. But as you well know, like, people need to believe that, you know, people have a really finely tuned sense of violence, because we have to. The moment we see human beings fighting, we have to go, oh, should we get out of here? What's the deal? Am I next, or should I join in, or what the hell? So we have finely tuned. So making a really, really good stage fight or film fight, honestly, the hugest amount of respect. And we did some exercises together when I brought you in. And as a matter of fact, I hired you too, right, to help out with something. And it was just so wonderful, the finesse you had. And it's just like, oh, okay. Three simple things. And it's like, oh, well, now it's real.
At risk of looking like I'm looking for self-congratulations. Did it help your actors understand the scene better? Because that was my goal. Because I was not concerned about creating the most extreme, because like you said, there's 3 movements. Yeah. But I wanted them to feel the danger to the characters, and I wanted them to understand the ramifications of the action.
Yeah.
Because I would suggest, and I'm talking to you with your director's hat on for a sec, hard part is to get people to release their knowledge of the show when they're working on it. So you, of course, read through the entire script. You've had numerous table reads. You had lots of rehearsal. And I talk about when we're rehearsing up fights, and people want things to go really well. So they remove all the things that might, like they polish and polish and polish, and they remove all the warts and pimples and all the little deviations, and then you get this perfect day. Yeah. And it's like, but that's not the fight anymore. Yeah. Like, the fight is full of a sense of the characters taken by surprise, the plans going awry, the fear, but that being said, exactly what you said earlier, the actors are entirely aware and safe of what they're doing, choreographed. And yet it looks spontaneous, and the characters are no longer the same after the end of the event.
Yeah.
There's no going back, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's nice when you have, when you're working with a performer where you can trust them and they trust you. I've been in some fight scenes with actors who I didn't trust because dude wanted to smoke a spliff before our big sword fight.
Because it calms me.
Yeah, it's like, dude, no. I've smoked plenty of spliffs in my day. That is not going to help in a fight scene with a sword, not at all. And also too, I had a performer who we choreographed the scene and we rehearsed the fight over and over and over again. So I was supposed to strangle this person, and she was just never comfortable. She was just always afraid. And I think she had issues with anxiety maybe anyway, but I did what I could to comfort her, to make her realize that I'm not going to hurt you. Like the way I put my hands around you, like I'm not actually touching you. And never felt comfortable. And so it was hard for me because then I was...
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Well, you're taking on a lot of responsibility, right? Yeah. To begin with. And then on top of it, you're doing the right thing, because I think you're trying to manage the relationship.
Yeah.
You know, at the same time, it's so funny that when I start talking this way, I can hear all the voices back. No, no, you're not responsible for other, like because we're getting a lot of mixed signals about good and bad behavior.
Yeah.
Right. And it's troubling, right? Because all I was going to say is that you're a partnership.
Yeah.
And a partnership, you're responsible for yourself, but you must think of the other, like a good marriage, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
You cannot become the other person. The best thing you can do is make their lives as pleasant as possible so they can be themselves. That's the relationship in a fight, right?
Exactly.
Did you ever find a center where the two of you could be comfortable, or she simply was, that's unfortunate?
Even the fight director, who was a really good fight director, built in a couple more safeguards just to help to assure her that she, I would never actually put pressure on her neck or whatever. And I'm going to say this, and I don't want it to sound weird, but I really, like, for the performance to work, I really wanted for the audience to believe that I'm in a murderous rage. So on the outside, and you know how actors do this.
Yeah,
on the
you're
outside,
looking angry.
Yeah, your body is giving the behavior of anger, but inside, I'm cool as a cucumber. I'm like putting the hands here, da da da, But I have to look to the audience as though I really want this person to die, and I think it triggered her.
Oh, no, I believe it. I'm not making light of that at all. I'm laughing just because the number of times I've watched my work performed and thought, I had a good run. I could
say that again, sorry?
I had a good run.
Yeah.
I could quit. I could sell shoes. Like, do I need to do this anymore? That sense of like, clearly I've reached my ultimate ability long ago, and this is what I'm creating now.
That's how I feel every day.
Yeah. Well, actually,
my daughters told me
that's interesting, because you were talking about you don't have the performance in your head, which is I completely get.
Yeah.
But talking to you again with your director's hat on, and yet your goal is to create a unified whole.
Yes.
So talk to me about the process you like to use to help the performers find that shared existence that the audience will be compelled by.
This is why I love rehearsal, and this is why, I'm writing a screenplay, and before even I'm choosing a cinematographer, I'm rehearsing with the actors, because it is, it's something that film people don't understand because they're stupid. No, I'm sorry.
Well, that's being left in.
I'm kidding.
Names.
I know. No, and I know that there is an arrogance that theater people have. We all as a theater person who's been a practitioner for quite some time and performed in many different plays from all the different eras, from, Elizabethan, Greek theater, there's just centuries of theatrical storytelling and that we draw from and that we are educated in. And film is just brand new. It's like a few centuries old, man. It's so sometimes film people say these things about stories and storytelling and practice where you just kind of go, you really need to learn theater, because if you knew the centuries of storytelling and theatrical practice and all that stuff, you wouldn't say stuff like that. So I love rehearsing. I love, and I think there should be more rehearsal. Theaters are, running out of money, so they don't want to pay for
pressure.
rehearsals.
And I've seen rehearsal periods collapse for sure in time.
Yeah. And I just think it's bull malarkey, but nonetheless, what are you going to do? Because the thing is, you give an actor 2 weeks to, learn Hamlet, he'll do it.
Yeah.
He or she will do it, but it's just not going to be, it's
what it would have been with 4 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Or 6, yeah.
So I prefer to have as much rehearsal as possible, and then you just come to an agreement together. And there can be disagreements, absolutely. And I love tussling around understanding an idea, not arguing with a person, but bringing forth your concept and what you believe, and they bring forth theirs, and try to meet halfway. And sometimes you concede and you go, you know what? For you to play this honestly, just do it the way you feel. I mean, that happened to me once, and it was a big education for both the actor and I to realize, what's most important is that you feel comfortable and that you you know.
Because you'll see them trying to act through something you've asked of them without them like burying it and owning it. I'll give you a very cynical comment I once shared when I was probably being flippant and not thinking too clearly. But someone would ask me the difference between film and theater actors is I had theater actors with skill. But the bullshit of that was just because at the time I just come off a project where the film actors were cast because of exactly how they looked.
Right.
And literally had no ability beyond remembering 3 lines and standing where they were told to stand. And even that was a bit of a chore, you know, and it was really frustrating when I thought of the theater actors I know who are triple threats or quite frankly, without being weird about it. Like we're not talking, you know, becoming the character 24/7 and method acting, but like really went to some serious effort to understand the role they were playing. Then again, theater actors will often experience a role and play a role, if they're lucky, weeks, if not months. Yeah. And many film actors, particularly if you're a day player, you have, like I said, 3 lines, and like this won't touch your life after that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So how can you possibly invest that much of your time in yourself, right?
Well, and that's the thing I find frustrating about the film attitude, that a lot of, you know, directors, producers, most people in the film industry, they just feel, well, you just have to get it right once, and they don't really understand acting. So what drives me up the wall, oh, if you are in the film industry and you're within the sound of my voice, please don't do this, okay? What drives me up the wall is someone handing you a script, 3 pages of freaking monologue to do in like 2 hours, you know? Like you're on this series and the writer's like, oh my God, I just came up with this idea. And then they sort of hand you this script as though your only job is to get words in your head and then spit them out your mouth. It drives me crazy that, you know, I've auditioned for leads in series where I'm auditioning on a Thursday, they start shooting on a Monday. That is ridiculous. Like the guy who had the cinematographer has had the script for fucking months. The costume person has had the script for months. If you seriously want to consider an actor, give them the script like months in advance, do the auditions months in advance, and then have the actor the same ability to analyze that text and to go over it and to develop a character, to, you know, drives me crazy. They don't think that what we do is, they just don't understand what we do. I don't even know what they think it is. You know, they probably have no idea. They just think, oh my God, all of a sudden he started to cry, and that was beautiful. The way you did that speech, that was great. I guess you just caught up with it, right? It's like, no, I took that speech home. I broke it down into beats. I made little notes on why I'm choosing specific words. And then I'm using sense memory to try and understand the feelings and the emotions of that character. And I'm putting that all together, and it takes time. It takes time to do that. You don't just hand me a script. I won't say the TV show, but somebody did that to me. A writer did that to me as the camera was rolling. So the camera goes, camera rolling. The sound person says sound speed. The TV writer comes up to me and says, oh, we've changed this text that you're about to say. Here, just say this. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? And I literally I said to everybody, just stop. Give me 5 minutes. I can learn this speech in 5 minutes, but I need 5 minutes. And they were pissed. It's like,
of course they were pissed. You
were wasting their time. Yeah. You think I just read it and just what the fuck? And I didn't even have time to work on it. Any acting. There's no acting involved.
Sure. Well, you know? Then let me ask you your opinion of this, because there's some rather famous, or we can call them infamous, major actors who simply have stopped learning lines.
Yeah.
And insisted, and part of me thought this was an attempt at a go fuck you thing, right? Like yeah. I'm just not. And so they would have someone read the line, and they'd have it in their, you know.
Yeah. You're talking about Marlon Brando.
He was one of the first I remember reading about that, but I've heard people contemporary doing it. And part of it is like, if you're going to keep changing scripts, why the fuck should I learn anything? But there's a bit of, dare I say, lack of belief that you can be honest and immediate if you've had any time to think. So that the only honesty is the honesty of the now that can only be created by spontaneity. And what's really interesting about that is we're talking spontaneously right now, but you and I have thought about what we're talking about for years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the only reason why we have so much to talk about is pent up.
This is my attitude. First off, Marlon Brando was able to do it because he's Marlon Brando, and he stopped giving a shit. He stopped giving a shit about acting long before he did that. And it's sad that he stopped giving a shit, but ultimately, I think it was taking a toll on his psyche. I really do. And I think that he was a genius, but much like geniuses, he was a troubled genius. And, you know, if I had directed Marlon Brando, I'd say, Marlon, just learn the fucking lines. Like, I know, you go, oh, no, it's more real if I just,
There's a thing, though, I think that it's interesting what you said. I would suggest people who are healthy, be it mentally and physically, and emotionally, we don't discuss, right? The stories come out from people who are unhealthy because those are interesting stories. And there's a perversity that we want to share those stories. Going back to what you're talking about, stories. Yeah. Right? Oh, yeah, I know what I wanted to say about that. When you're given scripts and driven, what's worse than a list? Right? Lists are brutal. Yeah. And a mathematician was talking about his frustration at teaching math to young people who already turn it off when he says that the human ability to know interpersonal information, very complex interpersonal relationship, using the example of a daytime soap, is profound. And he said, if we started thinking about math and the relationships of the numbers in math, like we talk about the relationships of people in a soap opera, we would be moving in a direction of understanding math far more successfully.
People would be
and I was really struck by that, actually, you know? Yeah.
I totally agree. It's like, and I was just watching a video with David Strasberg. He's an acting teacher in New York, and he was talking about memorization, where, you having an emotional content to what you're memorizing really, really helps. Like, just, you know, because I've had to do that. I've had to memorize. I've had to act in industrial videos for the government. For sure. Yeah. Back in Ottawa, remember?
Yeah. No. I did a number of those, and the embarrassment of not actually knowing what the words meant. I couldn't say things properly if I didn't know what the words meant.
Yeah. And I had to do one about, there was a new filing system for Revenue Canada, and there's like, the XJ4737 system is now the XJ7347, and I was just like, what am I saying? And what? It was the hardest thing to memorize.
And you did have to memorize it. Interesting. They kept changing the last one I did was for an engineering firm. And the text kept changing so quickly that I actually had cue cards.
You had what?
Cue cards.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be conversational, and I was talking with another actor, and they wanted it to look like you and I are talking now. But the words were really complicated. And at the time, Star Trek, The Next Generation was very popular, and I kept saying data rather than data.
Right.
As an example, which caused gritted teeth. No matter how hard I tried, it was like, oh, I'm fucking really sorry about that, you know?
Yeah. I've done that before too. And that's the other thing too, is, you know, if you're a science fiction fan, if you're a fantasy fan, there's so much information in the Lord of the Rings. There's so much information in like Elric, or like in all these stories that we read. So it's not, but the reason why it's made an emotional impact on us. That's why we remember.
Sure. Oh yeah. And it's interesting, sci-fi, I'm going to out you because we were talking about this before when you and Kirsten were talking about being on Star Trek, and I was like a fan going, yee! Because like I love Star Trek.
You froze. Yes.
I was going to say, I'm going to out you because first of all, I'm a big Star Trek fan, and seeing you on it and I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know you were on the show, and I just saw you, and I was like, yay! Like I was like totally being a fanboy. And I don't know how much your text was full of it, but other Star Trek actors would talk about the huge amount of nonsense words or information. And particularly in apparently the first generation, the second generation, there was a real attempt at making sense, where some of the, let's say, less caring or expensive science fiction franchises or movies don't give a fuck, right?
Yeah.
And so you're sitting there going, I don't know what this thing is. Like and the word and no one on the set knows how to pronounce it, and no one knows what it is.
Yeah.
And it's a problem when it's a major thing and you have 4 different ways of pronouncing it.
You know what was heartbreaking for me? I won't say what show it was, but it was heartbreaking when I was on this science fiction show that I really liked. And I thought everybody on the show who worked on it loved it. And I thought everybody in the show who worked on it like knew every detail, all the details I knew and stuff. And you get on the show and you see behind the curtain, you realize, no, nobody cares. Like, nobody. They're like, I don't know, say it however you like. And I'm like, what? No, there's got to be. Aren't you guys going to have like a glossary? Aren't you going to have a book or something with the proper pronunciation of how to say it in this language? No?
Yeah, a Bible, right?
Exactly, yeah.
There's actually, it's funny because I care about what we do so much. I love acting. I love theater. I love film. I love television. There are definitely things I never, ever want to be a part of.
Yeah.
Because I prefer to be an audience.
Yeah.
And I like the freedom of being an audience in certain respects.
Yeah.
You know?
But you know what? The one show I will say that was fun to be an audience member and on set was Dark Matter, because people did care.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so great. And the sets were so great. The people who are making all the props and stuff, they really cared, and they would explain to me the meaning of it and all that stuff. And the showrunner just was awesome, and all the actors cared. I had never, ever been on a show whose cast was so connected with each other and loved the show so much.
Really?
Ever. Even when I was on Star Trek. Like the actors on Star Trek really love working on that show.
For
but
sure.
Dark Matter took it another level.
Yeah, no, interesting. And there was a show, and of course, Farscape. And
Farscape.
And the thing that really interesting was, and don't quote me on this, but there was this conversation where someone said he was profoundly affected by the puppets and interacting with the puppets.
Right. And
they had a puppet that needed to be repaired. And I might be mixing this story up with a Muppet event, but they had no time, so they were rehearsing with the hand.
Right.
And at first, the performer that was live and human was taken out. But then almost as quickly, the hand gesture completely became compelling. And you hear talk about how when they did Star Wars with the original Yoda animatronic and puppet, that the direction would be spoken to the puppet.
Yeah.
Rather than to, I think, Frank Oz or the person who was doing it. And that's a hell of a compliment.
Yeah, man.
About circling back to that honesty and being connected to something.
Exactly. And he is a master, like Frank Oz was a master. And he was a great director too.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And he's somebody just who understood performance, and that movie was, I don't even want to get into the Star Wars stuff. I don't.
No, that's fine.
My sister was in the very last Star Wars movie, so it was excellent. Okay? So
oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah. Like, again, you blink and you miss her, but
but still.
She got to play an officer in the New Order, right?
It's part of history, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So I think, but also too, like from what my sister told me about being on set, everybody cared. People really cared.
I would
like
suggest the comments by the cast and the hurt and the anger they feel about the bludgeoning they took on social media.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? Nobody speaks the way they do if they don't care.
Yeah.